All right, I'm sitting down to re-record this because I spent like 12 minutes recording something for you guys and I screwed it up. I did not hit record, so I was basically talking to myself for 11 or 12 minutes. But I'm going to give you guys a quick little virtual tour of a really cool part of me and Debbie's trip when we were in Bosnia and then driving to Croatia and then up the coast of Croatia a little bit. Just because it's such a unique area, I wanted to give you guys a visual of what it was like for us. So I hope you enjoy. All right, guys. So I am starting this little virtual tour off in Belgrade. So Belgrade is the capital of Serbia. It's pretty cool because it has been the capital of like 40 different nations over the history, like over recorded history, and it's been bombed and rebuilt like a total of 11 times. It's pretty crazy. There's a ton of history here, and you can probably see because of these waterways. So this is the Danube River, and then this is the Sava River. So it's this huge port area. It was a very unique city. I don't know if I'd ever go back there. If we go back to Eastern Europe, I'd probably want to hit Croatia and Bosnia again, and maybe like Montenegro, but maybe not Belgrade. So from Belgrade, we drove to Sarajevo. And Sarajevo, here we go, we're going to fly over there. Sarajevo reminded me and Debbie a lot of Boise because there's this downtown area. It's gorgeous with these buildings, and there's a river running right down the middle of it. But also, it's surrounded by all these mountains, and they're like heavily investing in trails. And there's a lot of mountain biking and a lot of hiking and stuff. And then even at the top of, here it is. Even at the top of one of these little mountains, I don't know what that is actually, was the bobsled course from, I think it was like the 1982 Olympics. And they're super proud of it. And they just built a new gondola that takes you up there. And we went up there and we hiked around and explored a little bit. And then also the Olympic Stadium is over here too. And their CrossFit gym is located in this Olympic Stadium. So that's where Debbie and I did CrossFit a couple times. And yeah, I won't get into the history of Sarajevo too much, but I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of the genocide and the siege on Sarajevo, and it's kind of this perfect little town that, you know, you can have your troops surround it, and then they kind of storm it from the mountains, and there's all these perfect little mountain areas to have snipers and stuff, and that's kind of what made, you know, Sarajevo the perfect city to siege when it happened in the early 90s. So from Sarajevo, we drove not on the main highway, but it was kind of on the secondary highway called the M20 from Sarajevo to Trebinje and then to Dubrovnik. But between Sarajevo and Trebinje, there was a war memorial that we stopped at. And so I'm going to fly us over to that little war memorial. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's this huge monolithic, it's like a fractured star looking thing. And so we parked on the highway, and you can get out and walk up and walk through the memorial and stuff. And I'll splice in a real picture of that memorial so you guys can see it. So this is what the real memorial looks like. It's a very striking image just out in the middle of nowhere. So we explored there a little bit. We got back in the car and we drove from the war memorial to this town called Trebinje. And so Trebinje is very close to the Croatian border. It's in Bosnia. It's in kind of wine country. So like once you cross over the mountains a little bit, the climate turns more to what you would think of like the Italian climate and like the Adriatic climate. It's a little bit drier. I mean, you when we stopped here, it's almost like you're stopping in like Winnemucca or something, except everybody speaks Bosnian instead of speaking English. It was very, very familiar feeling. You know, there's hills and, you know, a little waterway, and we stopped at a gas station to go to the bathroom, and there were kids like hitchhiking that wanted to get to the coast of the Adriatic, and it was just a very, very familiar feeling, kind of nice little town, actually. And so what we did while we were in Trebinje is we toured this monastery which is also a winery. They made wine at this monastery over in this little area called Tverdos, I think, which is like a little just part of the town. So there's a church, there's living quarters for the monks, and obviously they grow grapes here. And it was pretty interesting because, like, as a female, if you toured this place, you had to have your shoulders covered. You have to wear pants to walk in there. You have to be very respectful. And they had this little gift shop too, where, you know, you could buy snacks and cheese and olives and all these things. So we actually bought some of those snacks and bought like 4 or 5 bottles of wine that we were going to celebrate with once we got to the coast of Croatia. So driving from Trebinje, I'm going to show you guys, like, we came over this little pass when we were driving to Dubrovnik before we got to the border crossing to get into Croatia. And you go around this little bend while you're on the highway, and you turn around this bend, and all of a sudden you can see the ocean. You drive around this corner and you can see the ocean. And it's a very stark contrast because it's a very dry climate over here. This is Google Earth, so this picture may have been taken at one point, but when we were there, it was late August, and so the foliage looked more like this. So it was kind of dry, deserty, and then you turn the corner, and it's like this oasis. All of a sudden, you see the Adriatic Sea. It was very, very striking. So you drive a little bit further, and you get to the border crossing. It's kind of funny. You drive along the border for a while until you get to the actual border crossing. And this little white building right here was the border to get into Croatia. And going from a non-EU country to an EU country, it's almost like, you're like, woohoo, we got in, and it's you have free reign. It's like going from the state to state. If you come into the United States from Canada, you can cross from Washington to Idaho to Utah, and you don't have to show your passport again. That's how it is traveling around in the EU. So they're a little more stringent on the border crossings from non-EU countries into EU countries. So we probably waited in line at this border for like an hour maybe. This isn't the main border crossing. As I said, there's another like more populated highway that was more than just 2 lanes. And so once we cross through here, you drive along the coast a little bit, and you come to Dubrovnik, which is even more of an oasis. It's crazy. It's this old walled city where they shoot Game of Thrones. It's this old Roman walled city. It's almost like a little version of Manhattan. Like, obviously people live in this place. This is the old town, and it's walled off. And these are all the new houses. Over here, there's resorts and stuff, but this is like the cool main attraction of this place. And it's a little more pricey inside here, and I'm sure you could go outside of the walled city and get some cheaper food and cheaper drinks and stuff. But definitely highly recommend this to anyone who wants to go to Croatia. It's kind of like the main attraction when you go there. And it's pretty cool. There's tons of little hidden alleyways, and like the street's kind of narrow in some parts, and there's tons of stairs, and like you could explore endlessly. Like, I mean, it's obviously not as big as Manhattan, but it's pretty wild walking around it there, and it looks kind of small on maps, but it's fairly big, surprisingly big actually. And we stayed up above the walled city. We were somewhere up along the highway, we were right off the highway, which kind of made it difficult to pull our car in and out. But we splurged a little bit, and we had an ocean view and overlooked the old town, and we celebrated with that cheese and olives and those bottles of wine that we got at Trebinje. And then I wanted to show you guys one more interesting thing when you're driving up the coast. So we left Dubrovnik. You got to drive back up to the main highway, and we actually crossed this crazy bridge, which is like an extension bridge thing. Oh, and I forgot to show you guys. So if you go on a Mediterranean cruise, all the cruise ships pull into this port, and so that's why you see these giant cruise ships over here. And then obviously, you can go over to these newer resort areas. But driving up the coast, So after Dubrovnik, we went to this town called Split. But before you get to Split, if you're looking at this map, so this is the border. Croatia's on the left and Bosnia's on the right. And when Yugoslavia broke up, I guess they made some sort of deal to where Bosnia wanted some coastline. So Bosnia has like a mile, like, I don't know, it's like 5 miles or something of coastline. So this is Croatia. This is Bosnia. And then it goes back to Croatia again. So it's pretty funny. You have to cross the border twice when you're driving just up the coast of Croatia. You go through Bosnia and then back into Croatia. And so they have one small little town here, and they do imports, exports directly into their country off of the Adriatic Sea here. So, and then we drove up and stayed in Split, which is this town right here. It's one of the most populated cities in Croatia, and actually a Roman emperor ruled the Roman Empire from Split. So if you can imagine that, way back in the day, all of the Roman Empire from the United Kingdom down to Egypt and as far to the east as Syria was all ruled from a guy that lived in Split. So pretty interesting. I hope you guys at some point have a chance to go to Croatia. It's such a cool place, and Bosnia is a cool place, and there's tons of history, recent history with the breakup of Yugoslavia and the Bosnian Serbs trying to kill all the, non-ethnic Bosnian Serbs and the genocide and all those things. But also, I mean, this was like vacation land for rich Roman oligarchs. So pretty awesome place. I hope you guys at some point have a chance to visit. So right on. That was my video.